Hi, good morning. Okay, today I will be speaking about the TAPA standards and what TAPA activities are in the Asia-Pacific region. I have actually divided part of this presentation in two. The other portion of it we'll discuss later in the panel discussion. I've been a board member since 2012 and an active member of TAPA Change Control Board since 2012, active member of the Worldwide Change Control Board since 2012, conducted numerous FSR, TSL training within the region since 2011. Nominated to be TAPA's Asia Training Committee lead for 2014-2015. That's why if you find that the training material have changed and there is now a very structured way to certify you all through an examination is because of me. So if you want to blame anybody, you can blame me for it. Because I believe to come for a training is not enough. You need to be actually assess and know your knowledge. So we need to make sure you're competent before we certify you as an auditor. I'm also a TAPA certified expert. I'm also part of my second job is I'm a regional director for Agility Logistics for quality and business excellence. Specialize in quality, environment, health, safety, and supply chain security within the company. What I do is I go around and implement a management system for each one of them in all my companies within Asia Pacific. I also try and make sure each company within Asia Pacific have at least a minimum standard for all our facilities. So if you deal with agility, whether you deal with it in Australia or you deal with it in India, your expectations will be you should get the same feel and look. Okay, now next question is, how many of you, just show of hands, know what TAPA is? Or how many don't know what TAPA is? That would be another question. How many don't know what TAPA is? Okay, fine, good, thank you. So at least we'll share what TAPA is. The Transported Asset Protection Association is actually a unique forum that unites global manufacturers, logistic providers, law enforcement agencies, and other stakeholders with a common aim of reducing losses from international supply chain. We have over 600 organizations. We represent 600 organizations. We are a non-profit organization and made up of volunteers within the industry, service providers, and law enforcement people. The purpose of TAPA is to address the ongoing security threats that are common to the industry. Transported Asset Protection Association is an association of companies or manufacturers. We have high-tech, food and beverage, luxury good, fashion, pharmaceutical. We have security logistic professional from high-value shipment companies. We have freight services industry companies, insurance companies, organization and association that support TAPA aims. Law enforcement agencies come to our, we engage them, we work with them closely, and other government agencies. Again, the objective is reducing the losses in the supply chain. Our vision, we are international supply chain where an international supply chain where controlled and traceable product can be transported in a cost-effective and secure environment. How we achieve this? We minimize cargo loss from the supply chain. TAPA achieves this through development and application of global security standards, recognize industry practices, technology, education, benchmarking, regulatory collaboration, and proactive identification of crime trends and supply chain security threats. All right? So basically, again, the mission is being very member-centric. TAPA is the only organization out there that produces standards which we are very member-centric. Our standards get reviewed every 2 to 3 years. Okay, I'll go to that later on. Our values are integrity and transparency in everything we do. Before I joined TAPA, I didn't know what level of transparency can be with the association. I was surprised. TAPA is very open, willing to engage anybody on everything we do. Okay, information is shared between those with different opinion, background, or experiences. We own our standards. We are proud of them. We action them, and we make decisions around them. Okay, representation and support from all our stakeholders. How is TAPA structured? TAPA is not a global body. Okay, some of us seem to think we are. No, we are not. We are three I would say, three geographical associations coming together. We have the Americas TAPA, we have the Asia Pacific TAPA, and then we have EMEA. These three actually work together to what we call a worldwide council. the chair and the vice chair of each one of these regions will sit in the worldwide council. We align our practices, we align our standards, we align our direction through this worldwide council. Each of these geolocations, like in Asia, we have every 2 years we have elections. So the members are voted in by our members. And the same in America and in EMEA. We also have something called the Worldwide Change Control Board. The Change Control Board's responsibility is to make sure we get feedback from the Worldwide Council, look at the industry at large, look at the changes in the industry, and come up with new standards. We try and make sure our standards are relevant to the industry. We try and make sure every 2 to 3 years we review our standards so that we don't get left behind with the new technologies out there. Okay, how is Asia structured, TAPA Asia structured? TAPA Asia based on the different parts of Asia, different languages, different way of business and things. We may have chapters or service centers. Like in China, we have a China chapter. Japan, we have a Japan chapter. In India and Philippines, we have service centers. So they help us take the TAPA interest and push it down within the country. Like in India, we have Subanka M2M paper driving the service center for India, right? These are our members. If I miss your logo out there, I apologize because not much of space to put as many companies there, all right? Our journey in 1997, there was the first meeting in the US by 37 representatives from high-tech industry because of the losses in the supply chain. TAPA is fairly new. We don't go back very far. 1997 was the first meeting. They decided the need to have some sort of association to look at supply chain losses. In 1999, the first meeting in Europe for TAPA EMEA, and the year 2000, TAPA EMEA and APAC regional chapters were formed. Okay, 2001, the first FSR, a Freight Security Requirement Standard, was pushed out. All right, and it was conducted in 2001. At that time, the audits were done by the manufacturing companies because this is an association of manufacturers, logistic providers, and all the rest. So the audits were done by the manufacturers. In the year 2002, because of more members coming on board, they felt that they cannot cope up with the audits. So they signed a memorandum of understanding with some companies. So they signed with 3 audit bodies, QMI, BV, QI, and SGS. So they became our official auditors. So they were the only 3 companies that could go around and certify a company. As we go along, 2005, we came up with a trucking security requirement. As you go down the beautiful table right down, we come to this year. Last year, 2014, we came up with a facility security requirement and the trucking security requirement. And 2015, there's a new change. For the lower levels of TAPA, level C, and level C for the freight security, facility security requirement and trucking security requirement, a company can self-certify itself if they follow a few rules. I'll go through what self-certification is all about. TAPA standards. The TAPA standard starts from facility security requirement. We have 3 levels, A, B, and C, designed for securing warehouses, logistic and distribution centers, and control of goods. So facility security requirement is about a facility, how we secure it. Trucking security requirement is about transportation of goods. That is also 3 levels, level 1, level 2, and level 3, designed for ensuring road transportation carrying high-value cargo or loads. We also have something called TACS. That's for securing the supply chain and route and within the air cargo terminals. Not so popular until recently in Asia. It was popular in EMEA, but in Asia, there was no interest until this year, 2015. A lot of companies have came back and said they are interested for such a standard to be developed. Okay, so we'll be looking into that. Another standard quite popular in Europe, but not so common in Asia, is the parking security requirement designed for securing the safe transport of trucks traveling a long distances. Again, this is only in EMEA right now. Some stats that we can really pull out. In the US, National Retail Federation estimated losses of between 15 billion and 30 billion annually Okay, according to a National Retail Federation 2012, 68% of this theft occurred en route from distribution center to the store or the store itself. All other cargo theft occurred en route from the manufacturer to the distribution center or at the distribution center or en route from one store to another. All right? Some statistics that TAPA has pulled out over the years, 2013. These are 2013 stats. Just picking number from the slides here, 20% of the crime involved theft of cargo from trailers. Okay? We have like 72.4 million highest value single cargo crime took place in China. So these are some of the numbers that we can show from TAPA. All right, let's look at 2014. In 2014, we look at the top 4 reported incident countries. China, 56% of all the reports we have. India, we have 24%. So what is happening to the Indian industry? We're getting more matured. We're willing to report. The numbers doesn't mean India has more crime. Huh? Don't get it wrong. Just because China show 56 and India show 24, Philippines show 6, Malaysia show 5, doesn't mean these are most highest crime countries. It just means these countries are reporting more than the other countries. Okay, one day we'll reach a level where we can say our numbers are accurate. The problem we have is this is relied on numbers being reported to TAPA and how TAPA disseminate the information to the rest of the industry. All right? Just a simple case study, we look at a loss ratio suffered by non-TAPA members who are nearly 3 times higher than the average experienced by TAPA members. All right? They compare a non-TAPA member loss ratio of 0.06% was identified for 2010, comparable to 2001-2002 levels within TAPA. Okay, so basically what we are saying based on the studies we have done is that the losses for non-TAPA members are always higher than TAPA members. Supply chain security initiative out there today. We have the World Customs Organization Framework for Standards. We have the Authorized Economic Operator AEO programs. I think we all are familiar with AEO programs when we deal with Europe. There's the Regulated Agent regime implemented in several APAC countries. You have the CTPAT. I think most of us would have heard of the CTPAT dealing with the US. Singapore has something called the STP program, which is similar to the AEO program. Then there is an industry standard called the ISO 28000 Security Management System for the supply chain. When it was pushed out, the feeling was it was going to be used in more effectively than a 9000 standard. But sadly, this standard is not taken up as well as was the expectation. And then the last one is the Transported Asset Protection Association initiative since 2000 in Asia. The TAPA standard, both the FSR and the TSR, were developed with direct involvement of key players. It was not something that some people got together and just rolled it out. It was direct involvement of key players within the industry, the buyers, the suppliers, the service providers with inputs from LAE. So you have a balance now. If the manufacturers want a standard which is more stringent, the logistics service provider will sort of give an input back telling them that, hey, that would mean extra costs. So they will then try and impose it. So it's a balance. At the end of it, TAPA standards is a balance between the buyer's requirement and the logistic provider requirement, and based on the industry. And again, the magic word, based on risk. That's why I use the word TAPA standard can be cascaded based on the risk level. Can be, what do you call that? What was the word I was trying? Huh? Can be scalable, sorry. I was trying to look for scalable. It's scalable based on the risk level, all right? TAPA is concerned primarily with the security, theft, and losses of goods in the supply chain, all right? It is predominantly applied by logistics service provider, often at the request of manufacturers and distributors. Again, the reason why it's popular is because the industry players develop the standards. Since they are involved in developing the standard, they then tell the logistic provider saying that, you will use my standard to make sure you deliver the goods, all right? And certification are site or truck specific. So if it's for a facility, it'll be site specific. And if it's for trucking, it'll be truck specific. It's not like the ISO 9000 standard or the other standard. You can get it for the entire company. This one has to be site-specific because each site need to implement the standard that's described. Okay, 2014, the two standards, FSR and TSR, was renewed. What happened is we have the same look and feel in the two standards because previously one was an entire mandatory standard, one was an optional standard based on the different requirement. So if you have a facility requirement, you walk into a facility A, they'll have some things there, and you walk into facility B, you'll have certain things there. And both are level A. And then you will say, surprisingly, they don't have this, and yet another facility have the same requirement in that facility because in 2011, FSR had optional elements. A company can choose to implement certain based on the way they were approaching the implementation of the standard. The content today contains mandatory element throughout. FSR now has a new name. Used to be called Freight Security Requirement. It has now been transformed to something we call Facility Security Requirement because we have taken the component of trucking out of it and created our own standard for trucking. All right, so we have a new name, Facility Security Requirement and Trucking Security Requirement. So what is Facility Security Requirement? Was formed in the US, like I mentioned earlier. The first members were manufacturers, all suffering from significant losses in multiple countries. Okay, so they embarked on measures based on collaboration among its members and using an existing idea of one of its manufacturing members. TAPA produced its own certifiable freight security requirement because at that time it had a component of trucking in it. Okay, TAPA FSRs were born and it continued to be the backbone of our security program since it was introduced. The current product, the Facility Security Requirement, is a result of collaboration between members of TAPA from across the supply chain with manufacturers, transporters, transportation providers, transportation security content experts, certification body, all playing a part. Even the certification bodies were involved in the development of this standard. Again, going deeper into what this standard is a minimum standard. Again, the way TAPA has structured is the facility security requirements are the minimum standard. It's not the maximum we're looking for. We're looking at minimum specifically for securing warehousing or in-transit cargo within a supply chain. We have three classifications, A, B, or C. C being the lowest. FSR is a global standard. Even though there are three regions working together to develop a standard, it is a common standard throughout the world. Okay, all the requirements are mandatory unless an exception is granted using a waiver. So there may be one or two requirements that you can request for a waiver, but the dependence of the waiver is you must put in mitigation to ensure the requirement is not is addressed. Okay. The section in the facility security requirement are perimeter security, access control, office area, office entrances, facility docks, warehousing, access control between office and dock and warehouse, the security systems, security procedures, background check, vetting of workforce, and freight handover process. What has happened is previously we used to have the trucking security requirement part of the freight security requirement. And since we took the trucking out, there is a real requirement to make sure that the handover between the trucking and facility is done correctly. That's why the freight handover process becomes very important in this standard now. Major changes in the 2014. All elements in the standard are now mandatory. There's a risk-based thinking and the need for organization to carry out risk assessment as well as require management to make informed decisions that record if mitigation of risk is necessary. Previously, there was no requirement to carry out risk assessment. 2014 standard says we want to see a risk assessment being carried out by the organization. The trucking security requirement is now addressed in the trucking security requirement. A new section of freight handover has now been introduced, has a handshake between the FSR and the TSR. Waivers are now valid for the duration of the certification. These are the major changes when we move from a 2014 to 2011 to a 2014. Now let's touch about trucking security requirement. After the FSR was established, the incident data showed that a great progress was made in the protection of facilities. However, now that facilities were protected, the criminals are now focusing on cargo theft, because that was not as protected, was now being concentrated with the trucking component of the supply chain. Trucking is often managed by different operators to the hub facility with different challenges. TAPA created a non-certified standard for trucking, and the first TAPA TSR was launched as a self-assessment program in 2008. Within 3 years of introduction and request from members, today, in 2012, we became a certifiable standard. 2014, we went through another change. Okay. In the 2014 standard, again, is a minimum standard for trucking. There are 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 being the highest, level 3 being the lowest. Again, it is mandatory. It has prescriptive requirement where performance of the security is described. We are not saying how many cameras should be there or what the GPS, what kind of GPS you must install. It tells you what is the performance of the components they are looking for. Not the numbers, not the manufacturers, whatever. TAPA does not tell you which manufacturer to go. We describe the performance we want. Okay? And our standards are also standards which can be built. Our standards can be built into contracts. So the push from TAPA is that you can actually, if you are a manufacturer and you want to get a company to meet a requirement, you would then refer to the required TAPA, FSR, or TSR levels. And the company will exactly know what performance they expect from you. You don't need to go into detail and describe how many cameras you need, how many CCTVs, how many motion sensors, how many kind of alarms they need. All that is not required. The trucking security requirement, just going a bit more detail into it, divided into 2 sections. One is called policy and procedure. Mainly that deals with logistics service provider focus on written policies and procedures that are in the company, including some of the resources necessary to carry out. The next section is practice. This deals with the physical assets of the trucks or independent trucker with a contractual agreement with the LSP. It focuses on the physical aspect of the truck to be used and the equipment required. The section 8 is optional. So what we have done is we have looked at trucking. Because trucking, a logistic provider may not own his own trucks. He may engage a third party to provide the trucks to them. So the way the TSR is structured is looking at LSP may own his truck or may not own his truck using a third party to provide the truck. So ensuring the security is maintained based on that arrangement. Again, just describing policy and procedure, we'll talk about management support and responsibility protocol, how you do vetting and termination protocol, training protocol, tracking and tracing protocol, en route protocol. In the practice, we deal with the truck. We look at the physical security of the trucking, the tracking technology involved, the security procedure involved, the employment criteria. How does the company deal with carrying out vetting and how it deals with termination of its workforce, and how we protect the interests of the company when somebody have left the organization, how you take care of driver and security training, how you hand over freight, how you do self-assessment of your trucks, and the last one, bi-optional, how you do a cargo track and trace requirement. That means how you put tracking devices in your cargo. The major changes in the TSR and the FSR are now aligned and have the same feel and look. As with the FSR, the TSR has now a new section on freight handover. Remember I said the FSR will have a freight handover. The TSR requires the same freight handover because there needs to be a handshake when the trucking handover to a facility or the facility handover to a truck. So that requirement is important. Okay, now let's touch on a new part of TAPA this year. We have decided that companies or members have come back to us and complained that getting a certification body to come and certify us is expensive. Sometimes I don't believe it is, but listening to our members, we decided to say that the lower level, level 3, or the FSR level C, which is We call it lower level, but it's actually a pretty high level of security for a common company. If you go to a company today, they will not be meeting our FSR level C or trucking requirement level 3. So we have said, we have this approach where a company can self-certify itself. Approach 1, the TAPA member and the appointed person is trained on the standard. So those people attending the trucking security requirement tomorrow and the day after can actually go back to their company and do a self-certification of your own companies. All right. Option 2, you have an independent audit body that is processing and conducting the self-certification for you. I mean, if you don't want to have your own company involved, you can actually still invite a third party to do it for you. The company submits a self-certification audit form and the waiver form. Because again, the TAPA process is that there may be some requirement in there that you're unable to meet due to physical infrastructure or due to governmental issues or whatever that you are unable to meet. You're allowed to raise a waiver as long as you're able to mitigate the risk. So you submit the audit form, the waiver form, make sure everything is filled out and complete and send it to the TAPA audit committee and the waiver committee who will review it. The application will be reviewed within 10 working days, and on application is successful, TAPA will issue you a certificate within 10 working days. Right? So it's as simple as that. But that's why attending a training becomes important, or engaging a third party to do it for you is important. So there, like I said, TAPA is very member-centric. We listen to our members. At the lower level, which is still a pretty high level of security, it can be self-certified. And TAPA will issue the certificate that says you are certified to that level. I'll describe the quality control we have. This is a self-certification process. Okay, we'll issue you the audit forms. What security assurance that TAPA has? All right, this is on all the standards. Our certification is done by trained auditors of independent certification body that has a MOU with TAPA. So we have a memorandum of understanding with our certification body. Not every certification body can audit you. So we actually have meetings with the certification bodies on a regular basis. Every quarterly, we meet the independent bodies to make sure the quality control is there. Auditors are trained by TAPA. We train them ourselves. Final approval for certification by TAPA after recommendation by the certification body. So if the certification body come and audit your sites, they can't tell you you're certified. They only can say that they will recommend you for certification. The entire audit report comes to a TAPA audit committee, which will review the report and then approve it. Certification is by identified site, trucks, rather than company-wide. Certification audits every 3 years. There is one mandatory requirement. The company must do self-audit or self-assessment on a yearly basis and submit back the report to a certification body, and the report goes back to TAPA. So every year, company is supposed to do a self-audit. And then we also have something called a shadow audit by TAPA. If we hear a complaint randomly, or even though there's concern based on the report submitted to us, we can go down to the site randomly and do an audit. If we find an issue, we'll withdraw back the certification, and the auditor responsible would be have to give reason on what happened to the certification. So TAPA is pretty tight with their own self-audits. So if a company is TAPA certified, they generally meet our requirements. The TAPA approved independent bodies in India, or in Asia Pacific, sorry. In Asia Pacific, the following: BV, TUB, DNV, SGS, LRQA. The two new ones we added is Intertech and Ethos. All right? Okay, let's talk about the amount of training we have done. In 2014, we have trained 532 members since July 2014. So in within 6 months, 532 members were trained. India had 24 last year. We trained 24 members last year in the facility security requirement. This year, we have 250 members trained. India doesn't have any training this year for FSR. I think we need to talk to Shubhankar to find out why he didn't do any training in India. All right? 2014, with 39 members were trained in trucking. 2015, 52 members were trained. And we have some training tomorrow and the day after. Certification within APAC. If you look at, we have altogether 434 sites certified. If you look at it, India would be a very small component of that, all right? We have 57 trucking security requirement certification and something called TAPA TTSP recognition, right? And the TSR certification within APAC, we have 57 certified. Lastly, selling, just do a bit of selling for TAPA. The benefits of adopting TAPA standards. One, the standard, the way it's written up, the way it's designed, it can be built into a contractual agreement quite easily. We have done research and worked with other law enforcement agencies, find that reduction in losses 3 times lesser than non-TAPA members. You get a lot of improved recognition from government countries for AEO status for safety and security requirement. AEO status, there's a part that deals with safety and security. If you have a TAPA certified site, you get preferential treatment as far as meeting those requirements. If you're a member, you get cargo crime real-time alerts. You get alerts whenever there's a loss. So from time to time, if you're a TAPA member, you should have got the IRS reports coming to you. It will never tell you the company. It'll never really tell you the location. It'll just tell you the geographical location where the loss happened. So you can be aware that that area is of a concern. Cargo crime database for risk assessment routes and trucking lanes. We are further developing that. Opportunity to network. And we do share a lot of information with law enforcement agencies and governments. Benefits of being a member. You have access to our standards and certification program. We do training. Being a member, you get training entitlement. TAPA membership is not really that expensive because it's packed with training and packed with ability to attend conferences like this. Access to ISS data. You want to get incident data, you can get it from the TAPA website. Incident alerts. Free pass to TAPA conferences. Discount at TAPA partner events. You get quarterly e-newsletters. And opportunity for professional advancement. TAPA has a professional advancement program, TAPA certified coordinators, TAPA certified specialists, or TAPA certified expert. You can get certified to these certifications. Membership in TAPA in India, not as much as we like to have, India being as big as it is. We have 5 full corporate members, 8 companies which are corporate light, and 2 certification bodies who are members. Members by categories, as you find, the highest is corporate light. Next we come to our corporate full. Our TAPA members in India, as you can see, there's a lot more space for other logos to go in. So we encourage more companies to get more logos into that. And the upcoming training that is in the near future. India, we're looking at a training in 15 or 16 October. And then this is for TSR. And just now was for that was for FSR, and this is for TSR. Another thing that TAPA is having, that if you're a TAPA member, you should be able to attend this free, but it's quite a distant away. It's in Phuket. There's a conference over 2 days. In that conference, we'll have a 5-day stretch where you have FSR and TSR training over 2 days. Then you have the TAPA APAC Supply Chain Conference. And then the last day, you have a specialized training for brand protection and risk management. And the members, the keynote speakers, specialists in the industry. And like I said, if you want to attend, the approximate costs that you would have got would be for the, if you're a member, that would be the amount you'll be paying in the blue. If you're a non-member, would be down here. All right? And feel free to go to our TAPA website, www.tapa-apac.org. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.